some excitement recently in the town of Clifton Park regarding a potentially dangerous animal, coyote. I don't. Did you hear about that?
No, I did not.
Yeah.
Actually, I thought it was a joke on Facebook. I saw a coyote coming, but I never.
Yeah. No, we had
That's something to do related with ice. I don't know.
we had a poor gentleman that was walking his dog and. What the coyote went after his dog. He stepped in between, and unfortunately, he had some injuries. And then the what we believe to be the same coyote attacked a car. So typically, that means they're not of the right mind when coyotes start attacking cars. But anyway, we were able to immediately partner with our friends at DEC. They came right in and began hunting for it, and they haven't been able to locate it. Although with this, with the weather we've had and everything else, if it was sick, which I would assume,
Yeah.
obviously it is, maybe it's already gone. We're not sure, but the Fish Ferry Preserve, which is hundreds of acres of beautiful property in the town of Clifton Park, one of our many parks or nature preserves, is still closed. We're just taking that precaution for safety reasons. Obviously, we don't want people walking through the preserve with their pets or without pets and encountering a possibly rabid coyote. So,
Where was it located? Where part of Clifton Park?
Down the Fish Ferry Preserve.
Oh, geez.
Down,
close.
yeah. So down at the far southern end along the river. So. Yeah, it's a concerning situation. We don't have any updates as of today as far as whether the coyote hasn't been found, dead or alive, so
Coyote at large.
yeah, we're still keeping the preserve closed. I know a lot of people are interested in that because the preserve gets a lot of use on a daily basis. So unfortunately, no news to report there, but we're on top of it. We're in contact with DC. They've been out in the preserve since the day we called last week to try to locate it, but unfortunately at this point, nothing to be found as of yet. So again, just to be precautious, we're going to keep the preserve closed. Hopefully we'll be able to lift that very soon. Also want to mention that the town board of the town of Clifton Park will be considering a moratorium on commercial cannabis growing. These operations can be quite large, and I'm not talking about somebody with 5 plants in their backyard or in the woods. I mean, we're talking 10, 20, 30 plus acres of rows and rows of cannabis. Buildings, large equipment, and that kind of operation. And if that was located next to a neighborhood or a business, might not be pleasant based on other examples that have occurred. Up in the town of Moreau, they've had an issue with a large cannabis growing operation and odor, terrible odors that the neighbors and people nearby aren't too happy with. So that's certainly one concern, but just generally a commercial growing operation could have other effects if it's, particularly if it's close by to a residential neighborhood. And at this point, we feel we need to study the situation and the state rules and regulations. A lot of times a state, enacts these new programs and makes certain things legal and tie the hands locally of local governments. So, but we need to research that and make sure, we need to research that and make sure that we have a full understanding of what we can and can't do as far as regulation. And in this case, regulation would be needed to protect our residents and our neighborhoods. And what are your feelings on Doge, Jay? I mean, I know you're chomping at the bit.
I love
about
Doge. This idea that we're just gutting the waste and looking at all the fraud and government corruption at its best, payoffs and everything else. It's just incredible. It's not a new thing. Bill Clinton and Al Gore started this. and Barack Obama continued it. As a matter of fact, the Doge government structure was actually started by Barack Obama and was implemented and actually expanded under Trump. So I think going after the federal government establishment the way they're going and lifting up, turning every stone and picking up every piece of paper and analyzing things to find where our money's going, I think it's great.
Well, some updates on that. They say they found $55 billion in savings, which sounds like a lot of money, but when you compare that to our deficits and national debt, it's a drop in the bucket. And I know they are planning on finding a lot more. They did find that there's $4.7 trillion in untraceable payments.
$55 billion saved to date.
Yeah, so $4.7 trillion in untraceable payments,
Yeah,
which
that.
really just shows a total lack of accounting practices. And the country right now is $36 trillion in debt. The CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, and they've had good estimates and bad estimates over the years, but January deficit for 2025, $127 billion. Just for January. The federal budget deficit over the last 4 months, $838 billion.
It's crazy.
Net interest that we're paying on the debt is just below $1 trillion. Now that's just for the interest, $1 trillion. And I want to put this into a little bit of context for everybody. And maybe you've heard these figures in the past, but 1 million seconds is 11.5 days. That's 1 million seconds. 1 billion seconds, 31.7 years. Okay? 1 trillion seconds, 31,700 years.
Crazy. It's
So
unfathomable.
we throw around billion and trillion in our daily lexicon, but just to give you an idea of the difference between 1 million, 1 billion, and 1 trillion, I think that drives the point home pretty clearly. And there's been a lot of talk recently about tax cuts. Trump wants to keep his original tax cuts that were passed in 2018, wants to keep those in place, make sure they continue. And it's incredibly frustrating to hear politicians talk about how tax cuts need to pay for themselves. That's what they always say.
It's not your money to begin with.
Yeah, the tax cuts, we need to pay for them. We need to pay for the tax cuts. And we learn every day how the federal government wastes money and very little accounting, as it appears, if they can't even trace the actual payments that are being made of $4.7 trillion. And it's just this whole outlook that the average American can do with less, but the government can't. And there's nothing more frustrating than that. You, me, Mr. Veach, everybody here paying taxes, we can do with less. But when it comes to government, well, you got to pay for it because God knows the government can't do with less. Even with all the incredible examples of waste that we know are there, but and everything that they're finding, their public.
Pete Bogg replied, do with what we do every day, and yet it's our money that goes out the door. We're going to take Granny's house because she can't pay her taxes, but we're going to give it abroad to all these other countries.
Well, every bureaucracy is like a virus.
Yeah.
It either grows or it dies.
Yes.
And without the proper leadership, every government, every bureaucracy will get away from the core government operations and start spending money on every little pet project. And before you know it, over time, things just metastasize to the point where you can't find the core government operations being defined because they're not defined. Everything becomes a government operation. Everything becomes a core government service. And that's what's happened. And unfortunately, with the leadership over the years, it hasn't been drawn in, even with the folks that you mentioned. If they started something, I think it was just a lot of talk. I didn't see much action behind it. But it's incredibly frustrating to hear that somehow the average American can do with less, but government can't. And you look at where the money's spent, $36 trillion in debt, $1 trillion just for interest.
More than we spend on defense. Defense budget is $800 billion.
Well, that's gone down as a percentage of the overall spending. But the bottom line is something's got to be done. You just can't continue to go like this. No government can, no organization can. And even though we print, last I knew last year, $100 trillion every few months, the government has a printing press, which we don't have at the county or the town.
Oh, we wish.
Yeah, right. But all that's doing is creating more inflation. Government spending, government regulations, printing money, that's also stealing from the average American. And a lot of the talk revolves around tax cuts and the spending in the budget. We rarely hear about the regulations. Each day, new regulations that continually compound of stealing money from you and the inflationary pressures of government spending along with printing money. So these are all ways that without you even realizing it, your financial situation is being eaten away just a little bit each day. We should focus on taxes, but we also need to focus on regulation and these other inflationary pressures that are devaluing your money. And so I'm just glad something's being done about it, something concrete.
Absolutely.
And I don't see how we can turn the other way and just pretend it's not happening anymore. So long overdue. Thankfully, something's being done. And it's incredible to see the arguments against it.
Because they don't want to lose their money and their power.
It's incredible to see the arguments against it. And so I hope they keep going and finding new ways of saving money and make sure that the money we are spending is done smartly and effectively. So going back to Saratoga County, we are the lowest tax county in the upstate 55 counties. Somehow, for years, we were able to say we were the lowest tax county. Unfortunately, Suffolk County somehow beat us out last year. I don't know how that happened, but now we have a new thing to shoot for. So we're the lowest tax county in the upstate 55 counties, lowest per capita spending county in New York State. We also still have a 7% sales tax. So when you're out there buying things in Saratoga County, you're going to pay less money. All ways that Saratoga County does everything possible to make sure that you get the best value for your dollar. But on the regulation side, just to give you an idea, unfunded mandates. For Saratoga County, just this year, 2025, $9.5 million in increased costs in 25 due to unfunded mandates. And that's not uncommon. I mean, each year those unfunded mandates continue to climb. And again, not something that's talked about a lot, but it eats away from the county budget, eats away at what we can provide services, core services to the residents of Saratoga County, and that's your tax money through these unfunded mandates. So it's something that we need to keep in mind on a regular basis and talk about as much as possible. I also want to thank, we had a great showing. We had about 30 people show up on a Saturday morning a couple of weeks ago for our park stewardship program in the town of Clifton Park. We have permanently preserved 2,000 acres of property over the last 20 years. A lot of that property, most of it, is new parks, new nature preserves throughout the entire town. And we are very fortunate to have people that use the parks every day or a few times a week. When they see a potential safety issue or any kind of problem in the park, they'll email me or the Parks Department or Buildings and Grounds. So we immediately take care of those issues, and that's great. But we also want to get more people involved in their quote-unquote ownership of the parks. And there's a lot of opportunities. If there's a park near you in Clifton Park that you're particularly fond of and you want to get more involved, please contact me at Town Hall, and I will point you in the right direction. So having more and more community involvement in any facet of town government's a good thing, but particularly with our parks and nature preserves that have continued to grow exponentially over the years, and we're very proud of that initiative. We have some other updates on important issues we're discussing in Saratoga County, but that's why we have our great guest here, Supervisor Matt Veach from Saratoga Springs. How are you, sir?
Hello, Matt.
Good afternoon, guys.
Good to see you.
Glad to be here.
And for those that don't understand the structure of county government, Saratoga Springs and Clifton Park have a county supervisor as well as a town and county supervisor. We have two representatives each at the Board of Supervisors. We're the only two municipalities that have two representatives, and that's just due to the population size of Clifton Park and Saratoga Springs. So on the Saratoga Springs side, they have a city council, they have a mayor. The mayor is not on the Board of Supervisors,
Right.
but the city has two county supervisors. For Clifton Park, I am the town and county supervisor, and then we have an at-large county supervisor that serves with me on the county board. So welcome, sir. Great to have you here today.
Yeah, good to be here.
Yeah,
Glad to be here.
And there's a lot going on at the
man.
county, but
Yes, there is.
first, for folks that may not be as familiar with you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am, as you had mentioned, the county supervisor, one of two from Saratoga Springs, and I am a fifth-generation Saratogian. My family has lived in the city of Saratoga Springs for a little over 100 years. I actually have more generations on my grandmother's side than my grandfather's side, but I don't know how far back those guys go. So, so I've been doing the job now. This is my 9th term. I'm in year 18 as a supervisor, and I've worked with Supervisor Barrett for all those years.
Yeah.
And we've gotten a lot done during that time. So, I am recently retired from Verizon. I had a 25-year career there. I worked in the engineering side of Verizon. So, just recently retired. I'm looking for work. So if anybody's out there, anybody's out there hiring,
Way to pitch
might
it.
have
Way to
I
pitch
can
it.
get you my resume if you want, or have Phil get it to you.
Yeah.
So have a keen interest in Saratoga history, Saratoga County history, but really Saratoga Springs history and all the various things we've done over the years. I have a wife and 2 kids, both adults and special needs kids, actually. They're both autistic, and it's been an interesting challenge in our life to have our kids with those challenges themselves. So, again, glad to represent the city and glad to work with Phil on the Board of Supervisors.
Well, Supervisor Veach has done a great job representing the city at the county level. As he said, we've been working together for his entire time on the County Board of Supervisors. And I think you've brought a lot of reason and common sense to the Board of Supervisors, and you've effectively represented Saratoga Springs on many, many issues that were important to the city. And you, as you just described, you have a long history in Saratoga Springs, your family, and I know you're a history buff. And I was just hoping if there was like one really interesting story, maybe it's has something to do with the old casinos, maybe the racetrack. I know. Yeah, just
Talk
one-
about baiting the
Yeah,
guest here.
just if he had because once in a while he'll mention to me some really cool parts of the city's history that I'm not familiar with, And so I thought he could share one of those interesting stories with our
The gears are
viewers.
turning.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how interesting of a story it is, but the truth is my brother is really the one you're supposed to talk to about those stories. So he's written a couple of books on the old gambling, prohibition, casino, law enforcement. My brother was the chief of police in Saratoga Springs for about a decade, and unfortunately he retired some years ago, but. He was kind of embroiled in some of that early Black Lives Matter type stuff.
I remember when they had the protest. Yeah,
he was the chief when the Darrell Mount incident occurred, so he was challenged by a lot of different things that happened when he was the chief. But he also has a keen interest in history and wrote 2 books on Saratoga's kind of shady criminal past.
It's got a rich gambling history, so it's got to have some good stories. Yeah.
And so he's really the one to ask those questions, but I'll give you two interesting tidbits. One is they're both related to my family, but as Phil said, we both serve on the board of supervisors together, but my cousin Kevin is also the supervisor in the town of Greenfield. So right now there's 2 Veaches serving on the county board of supervisors right now.
Beaches.
He is my dad's first cousin, so we've known them for all the years. But the other interesting tidbit is that we grew up, or my cousin Kevin and my father, my family used to own the Old Bryan Inn in Saratoga Springs. So the Veaches were the owners of that house for a bunch of years, and from like the 1950s to the 1970s. When it was sold to the restaurant and it became the Old Bryan Inn restaurant that you know. Again, my other relatives we married into own the building before that. So so we have a long history in Saratoga Springs, and it's an interesting family tidbit of the city that a lot of people don't know. So proud to have that. So, I don't know if that satified your question.
Oh, that's great. Hey, maybe I'll have your brother on. We can talk about the books.
Oh yeah, he'd love to do that.
Oh
yeah,
fun.
absolutely. Yeah.
We have room for another Veach. Right?
Yeah, my history, my real history research is in urban renewal.
Yeah.
So not quite as fun as the shady Saratoga criminal past, but
gentrification's big right now.
Yeah, we did a very extensive urban renewal program in Saratoga Springs, and it was about a 25-year program back from the 60s to the 1980s. Saratoga Springs City Center is a building that's an urban renewal building, and was done as part of the program, as well as the plaza where Embassy Suites is today, if you know where that is.
Yeah.
That
Didn't
hotel.
Didn't Sneaky Pete's used to be in there?
No, that was actually not an urban renewal project.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, that strip mall was.
That doesn't sound like an urban.
It was a great
Sneaky
nightclub.
Pete.
Actually.
I've had
the Newberries.
Oh yeah, the Newberries. Oh yeah, I would tell
Those were my hopping spots when I was a kid. Yeah.
Oh boy.
But
I don't know if we want to go down that road.
that where Sneaky Pete's.
I wouldn't want to go either.
You lived to tell. You lived to tell about.
Yeah.
Good stories too.
But that was actually built when
It was
they
the
tore
PG
down
show, so-
the Grand Union
Yeah, that's
hotel,
right.
right? And they built this strip mall. But that was not urban renewal. That was just a fire that happened, or the building became unable to be restored, and so they tore it down. But urban renewal was specific government program, right? That tried to revitalize cities, and a big part of Saratoga was torn down, and so I go back and look with all of our preservation efforts and whatnot in the city. Why did we do it? What was the purpose? And was it successful at the end of the day? So that's my my history, my thoughts, and what I get interested in. So
and the city's obviously changed quite a bit.
Urban planning.
Over the last 20 years, it's
Very much
changed
so,
quite a bit.
yes, exactly. So proud of the city. It's a great place, and doesn't have as many people as Clifton Park, but we're catching
not
up.
Quite. Not
Although
quite.
what I always liked about Saratoga Springs is it is very much growing, but it seems to keep its old world charm.
Yes.
For some reason, even in the architecture that they allow and the way that the planning of the buildings, I think I really like that part of it.
Yeah.
It looks good. Even the new casino they're putting up there, well, the old casino, the hotel, was it the Canfield Casino?
Yes.
Yeah.
The
They're
old
really
history museum.
Renovating that really nice and
Yep.
keeping the original architecture. I like that.
Yeah.
Maybe you can bring back Sneaky Pete's.
No.
Maybe he'll open up a new bar up there. Sneaky Pete's.
Don't give me
too.
don't give me that idea. I'm busy.
Probably a lot of people out there that are going to be laughing. Say, "Oh, I remember Sneaky."
I remember Sneaky.
I've been there many times.
You
Well, I
said-
can't say I had the pleasure, but I'm sure I missed a lot.
You missed a lot.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
Desperate Annie's is still my favorite bar downtown.
Where was that one?
That's on Caroline Street.
Okay, yeah.
Right
That's
next
with
to
the basement.
Gaffney's. No,
No.
next to Gaffney's, one spot up.
Okay. What was the one before that, closer to Broadway? When you went down a couple steps into the basement, wasn't
Oh,
it?
Tin and Lint.
Ten.
Yeah,
I used to like
right
that
on the
place.
corner.
Yeah,
Yep.
that
Yep.
was pretty.
I
cool.
think he's hit them all.
Oh, I have. Believe me. In every parking lot they're sleeping at night. I had a very polyvalent childhood.
Yeah, I see that. All right, well, back to the show. So,
Sure.
as far as this year, or 2024, I should say, we had the Belmont in Saratoga
Yes.
Springs,
Yes.
and the fanfare around the whole race, and there were many different events,
Yep.
and the county was part of that, and you were certainly part of that. And overall, what's your review of how the Belmont went the first year? Because it's coming back this year.
Which is
Yeah.
awesome.
So yeah, I mean, I think it was a great success for the city. I mean, overall, at least to the point of getting ourselves on the national stage and an international stage. The Belmont third leg of the Triple Crown. The entire racing
Yeah.
world is looking at you when that happens, and I guess we can say good that they're renovating Belmont so that they brought it all up to Saratoga. So, I thought the events that they had in Saratoga were wonderful. I thought that concert they did. The Belmont on Broadway or whatever a couple days before the race was just amazing.
Oh, yeah.
They had what was it, Blues Traveler did the music, and they probably had 15,000 people on Broadway, which I've never seen in my history of living there. It reminded me you remember the Floral Fete that they had like some years ago. You were on the board of supervisors at that time.
Yeah.
They did like a floral parade one year.
That's cool.
For like the 100th anniversary of the city. Maybe it might have been a decade ago. And the same amount of people were out on Broadway, and the energy is just unbelievable when
Yeah,
that
it was.
happens. You just can feel the whole town is like, breathing
Yeah.
that energy. And so I thought that was really great. No incidents. I mean, our law enforcement did such a great job.
They did.
We have a great commissioner of public safety and Tim Cole, who former FBI guy, and so he used all of his connections to ensure that all those agencies were there and making sure that nothing happened in Saratoga.
That's key.
To kind of
That's key.
you don't want to have that big day and then there's some incident that happens at night.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about that instead of the racing. So I think at the end of the day it was a great success. I would say that on a kind of a different note, I think it kind of diluted the year though for Saratoga. The regular racing season felt a little less crowded, and so I think that the Belmont, while a huge success, kind of softened the rest of the season.
Why do you think that is?
I think because of locals, for the most part. A lot of locals will go to the track for like their 1 week, right, a year. And because they had it so early for the Belmont, folks did their track trip then in June instead of in July.
That's funny. I would have thought it would
Yeah.
have attracted a different crowd.
Yeah, no, it kind of felt like the track season this year was a little less energized. I mean, again, successful. I'm not saying it was a
Sure.
bad year. I'm saying it was a great year like it always is.
But there's always a good year.
Yeah.
There's always better years. But
Right,
it's always a
right.
good year.
Right. So,
Do you think a lot of people coming from out of town also
Exactly.
maybe came for the Belmont instead of during the racing?
Yep.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that happened
yeah.
as well. So we got, really front loaded in the track season last year, which in some cases is good. I mean, I like going to the track when it's not that busy.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I bet
you
you
can
the-
really take it in when it's not crowded.
The
So,
business, I'm sure, businesses loved it because it
Yes.
extended that period. It gave them a boost in the beginning of the year.
Yep.
beginning
And
of
we're
the
going to do it
season,
all
and-
again this year. So
And there's going to be additional seasonal racing as well, right?
correct. So they're adding a day to the
expanding.
Belmont Festival.
Yeah.
So they're going, I think, from Thursday through Sunday now, and where I think it was Friday and Saturday last year, maybe and Sunday. But so they're adding a day, and then they're coming back literally like the next week for the
Right.
start of the racing season. I think they're starting on July 11th, which is pretty early for the track, and then going all the way to Labor Day. So.
That's long.
So they'll be off for about a week, and then they come back. So it's going to be an interesting, or a couple of weeks, and then they come back. So it's going to be an interesting interesting season this year, kind of
Yeah.
a busier year, and we'll see how it goes. I do, again, as a local guy who wants to make sure we're successful, is I do fear expanding the season too far will become an issue because of some of those things I said. Where
Yeah, at that point, you do dilute the
Right,
crowd.
you
'Cause
can't-
there's only a certain amount of people that go to horse racing, and
Exactly.
the more you extend it, the more they spread out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, the harness track was in Saratoga for all those years. It still is there, but I think that kind of happened with that venue as well. Like they started expanding the days. They started, making more racing, and what happened was that it kind of diluted that product, and now people don't necessarily go to the casino now for the racing. They go for the casino, and so you don't get as big a crowds for harness racing anymore like you used to get. So it's not like Yonkers Raceway where it's packed, or Monticello where there's a lot. So
Well, is that something as a municipality or community you can help promote? I know it's a totally different venue, but
Yeah, I
the
mean,
city
we-
still gets money. Out of
yeah,
it,
we do as
obviously.
much. I mean, we get our VLT revenue from the casino, but at the end of the day, yeah, I think so. I mean, we do a fair job of that, in the city for harness racing, but I do want to just go back to the track. We don't really have a lot of control over the
That's all.
NIRA
Right.
program. So my hope is just that they hear from the community and kind of respect that. We want to make sure it's not going from Memorial Day to Labor Day. It's just too long of a season, and try to keep it special for the weeks that we have it.
Yeah.
And there's
So-
there's additional expenses on the services side if
Yes.
they extend it as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think overall the city, we kind of broke relatively even on the Belmont. It wasn't a huge tax revenue generator or moneymaker, which, because we had to put a lot more into it this year. So
Right.
instead of we like what we normally do in public safety. So and again, I'm saying it's a success,
Yeah.
but not like the complete windfall that we thought it was going to be. So, and I think next year will be the same. I think we'll do it better next year because
Yeah.
we know how to do it now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I just remember being up on the stage that was facing down Broadway. And
Oh, that's right. You said something right before the band came
little
on.
welcome.
I don't remember what it was because I was waiting for the band.
I don't remember what it
Did
was.
you sing? Did you
I
sing,
don't
Phil?
remember what it was.
Did
No,
you say,
I-
and
no.
I'll have it mine?
Nobody asked me to sing. I was
Ah,
disappointed.
They missed out.
I know.
Well, they
I
can
know
always,
they did.
they
They
can
did.
always hire me this year, But no, so just give it a little welcome or whatever. And when you look down that street, I mean, it was shoulder to shoulder
was
as
amazing.
far as you could see.
Did that not
Amazing.
translate to sales in the restaurants and the bars and everything else?
I think it was people came for the event and then kind of left
Left.
after the event. Yeah,
that's too bad.
Yeah. So I mean, I anecdotally from some of the downtown businesses, some were said they had a really great time and they did well, and then some said they didn't really do that well. So it was.
I
an
think a lot of it
interesting-
has to do with expectations too.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're thinking, God,
It was hyped.
There's going to be
Yeah.
10, 15,000 people down here. I'm going to have a blowout night or a blowout weekend, and it was probably a better weekend than they normally
Oh
get.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
absolutely.
But if the expectation was something very, very high, maybe it just didn't reach.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But well, let's get on to a couple of issues
Sure.
that are under discussion at the county. One of them is occupancy tax. Now, Supervisor Veach is vice chairman for the county board of supervisors, and I'm the chairman. And we talk often about different things, but actually, vice chairman I think is the most powerful position in the county because he
I
chairs.
appreciate that.
Yeah, he chairs the Law and Finance Committee, and that's every piece of legislation goes through the Law and Finance Committee, and a lot of things get started at the Law and Finance
Yep.
Committee. And you had a meeting last week, and there's been some press around a couple of issues. One of them is occupancy tax.
Yep.
As a county, we're looking at different ways that we can change our structure regarding occupancy tax with now the new New York State short-term rental legislation that is now been thrust upon us. So whenever we have these new mandates and new programs and new regulations that we're now responsible for, we then look at the entire situation and say, well, how can we respond to this and do it in a thoughtful, efficient way
Yep.
to maybe improve what we're doing as we incorporate these new regulations into our responsibilities. And there's going to be some extra expense for the counties, certainly a lot of extra work for the county, and that all costs money. And but again, we've gone back to say, how can we improve our occupancy tax structure?
Phil, let me interrupt real quick. Just
Yeah.
if people don't know, what is an occupancy tax exactly? Like what you would get on a hotel reservation or Airbnb
Correct.
or something like that? Okay. In
Yep.
case people didn't
Right.
know, I just want
Yes.
to put that out there.
Yeah,
Generally known as bed tax.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the bed tax, occupancy tax. There's a lot of different terms for it, but basically, it's when you go to a hotel. When you used to, well, you said you slept in your car, but if when you went to Sneaky Pete's, if you got a hotel instead of sleeping in
No
your
fun on
car,
hotel.
you would have paid a hotel bed tax
Okay.
at the hotel.
There you
So
go.
it's right there on your bill. It can be very, very expensive depending on where you're going.
Yep.
If you're in Saratoga County, it's extremely inexpensive when compared to our peers. Just to give you an idea, right now the county's at 1%. Localities like Clifton Park are at 0%. We don't get anything. Although I tried several years
Yeah,
ago
I remember this.
to incorporate a bed tax for Clifton Park. We were getting a lot of interest, a lot of private sector investment on hotels and hospitality. And the idea was to have a very small bed tax for Clifton Park. And at that point, Clifton Park could be part of that structure. So when you have your when you get your bill, when you stay at a hotel and you see the different organizations like the state mainly, and then your sales tax, and then your county, and there would be a small line there for Clifton Park, and then we could use that money for our own efforts to promote the town and do various upgrades in the Exit 9 area. So you try to target that money. So Clifton Park gets nothing. And although we did try that years ago, it did get passed by the Senate. It was passed by the Assembly and then vetoed by Governor Cuomo. Still not sure why, but it was vetoed by the governor, and our effort to have a small bed tax in Clifton Park went by the wayside.
So as a municipality, you had to jump through all those hoops
Yes.
to try to get it
Yep.
implemented for your municipality.
Right.
That's incredible.
And that's normal with a lot of these.
Yeah.
They call it home rule.
Yeah.
With a lot of these home rule legislation initiatives, the Assembly and Senate need to approve it, and then the governor needs to sign it. So unfortunately, we made it all the way to the governor, and he declined it.
Well, his priority was
Yes.
So for a different example, so the city of Saratoga Springs, we have occupancy tax as well, and ours was actually enacted back in the 1970s when we did the county occupancy tax, right? So this law started in the 1970s essentially to enact bed tax in Saratoga County, and so the county has the 1%, as Phil had mentioned, but the city has a separate structure, kind of like what Phil was alluding to, where
Right.
we have 1% that goes to the city of Saratoga Springs for their general operating, and then 2% that goes to the Saratoga Springs City Center, as I mentioned before, for conventions. And then we also have 2%.
for letting
Then we
us
also
know.
have 2% that goes to Discover Saratoga, which is our tourism bureau. So we also target our funding from occupancy tax, and that goes to various tourism promotion activities in Saratoga Springs.
I think
just
it's a
for the
great
city.
use of those
Right,
dollars.
and the best, well, I'm going to say the best part of it, but the good part of it is it's being paid for by visitors
Yes.
who come to our community,
Right.
and we're not taxing our own residents
Correct.
for this,
Right.
and we're getting the benefit from it. And we're finding in the city that we have parking garages now that we've built that have come up in the past decade or so. We have other types of infrastructure problems that are starting to, kind of creep up with more people coming to our town.
Right.
We need to figure out how to pay for those kinds of things as well. As you may have seen, we did a paid parking program last summer. We're still trying to figure out whether that's the right thing to do, but bed tax is another way to try to help with local residents' burden of taxes with having visitors pay for it.
And the city the city council recently voted to increase their
Yes.
bed tax. Is that correct?
Yes, by 1% for the
Yep.
city. The other 2 and 2 that I mentioned before, those will stay the same for Discover and the city center.
Just
Yep.
a question: why wouldn't you raise it to 5%?
So I think
Nobody's going to look at that when they rent, and it's
Right.
not affecting the population of Saratoga.
yeah, I know when I go places,
Yeah.
I don't even look at my
Nobody
bill
looks.
at
Yeah,
that
right.
stuff, right? And sometimes it's 12% or 15%, right? It's a huge,
17%.
huge
Yeah,
number.
let's be
20%.
real. The people that come to Saratoga have money.
Yeah,
They
and
come here to spend money, and they expect to spend money. So,
yep.
I mean, why wouldn't you do that? Why are you wanting incrementally a 1 and 2? Why don't you go for 5 and 10?
Yeah, and it's a good point. I mean, I think we want to stay fiscally conservative in the sense of tax burden generally, right? I mean, as a county, we don't want to overdo it. We want to stay competitive with other counties. Warren County has a higher bed tax than we do, so we don't want them staying in Glens Falls, right? And we want them in Clifton Park hotels or Saratoga Springs
Right.
hotels. So if we can be competitive against our neighbors, I think that's a good reason for just kind of incrementally doing it. Rather than going higher. And I think philosophically, right? I mean, tax burden is in general is something we don't want to, be talking about, raising taxes here and raising taxes there, because
Right.
as Phil had mentioned earlier, it kind of gets out of hand, right? When you're in government, you don't want to overdo it.
That's the one tax.
Because then the
I don't
next
think
thing you're doing is property taxes, and you don't want to do
That's
that.
the one tax. I travel a lot, and I hate taxes. That's the one thing I never look at.
Yeah.
Is bed tax.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I know I'm a tourist, and you pay for it.
Exactly.
I'd jack that up as high as I could go.
But again, with the Airbnb law, I think it was the opportune time for the county to open this up. I mean, we've been at 1% for 50 years almost.
That's right, because right now there isn't a tax on rentals like that, correct?
Correct.
Right.
So the state is looking to implement something like that. How would that?
They are.
How would that work? Are you going to
That's
rely
good.
on the homeowner to say, well, I rented my house 4 times, and this is the percentage of? I mean,
It's going to be interesting. We haven't really gotten to those weeds yet, but
Right.
the truth is I think most of the platforms are going to be able to do that on the behalf
Yeah.
of the renter,
That's what I figured.
right? Like an Airbnb as a
Entity.
entity is going to pay it on behalf, right? But our law, and I don't think we're changing this part, is going to still rely on all of those Airbnb renters to register, right? You're going to have to register yourself as
Right.
a operator, let's call it, of a establishment. The state law allows us to build a registry, right? And so
I find that more intrusive.
yeah, right, right.
Well, and that's part of the additional work. So the county will be the keeper of the registry. So we have to build this registry and maintain it. And
More
and-
unfunded mandates.
Yeah, state,
Yeah.
it's that, and it's staffing time and people
Yeah.
Right.
that are going to have to be brought in to kind of manage this whole thing. So
Right.
so one way we can help fund that is through increasing the tax. The other part of it is, as Phil had mentioned, the town was not able to get to the occupancy tax piece, and so one of those percentage points, let's say, could be used to distribute that back to the towns where it's generated, right?
Absolutely.
So Clifton Park will be generating a lot of tax from Airbnbs and hotels.
Yeah.
Saratoga Springs will, as well as Malta. They have other hotels there, but every town has Airbnbs in them.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where you're from Waterford to Edinburgh, there's
As a matter of fact,
Airbnbs.
I'm looking at Airbnb my lake house. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So,
Make sure you register.
so yeah.
That sounds intrusive. I don't know.
So that would go back to the
Oh, I
municipalities.
thought you were.
It is
Republican.
intrusive. Well, these are the mandates. you
Yeah,
know,
right.
I'm still baffled
have to
that
do it.
Cuomo vetoed that bill.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
for Clifton Park. That makes no sense
Yep.
to me.
But this is a mechanism for us to get there for the town.
Yeah.
So if we-
I
so
think
if-
we should
Couple
have
it
done.
one and the other. So.
Yeah.
So if the county's currently at 1%, and if it were increased to 3%, that would allow for local municipalities within Saratoga County to share in that revenue.
Yep.
But when I did some research on our peers in the region, Albany 6.5%, Essex 5%, Warren
So I
4%.
said,
They've all been there. They've all gotten there. Yeah.
Yeah, and the New York State average is 4.5%. So if we went to 3%, we're still well below. And also keep in mind, our sales tax is 1% lower than our peers as well.
Yep.
Well, see, that affects the residents of the county, so I would see why you want to keep that.
Yeah,
as
but
low
it
as
also
possible.
affects your hotel bed tax as well, because you're charged sales tax on there.
Yeah,
So, so if you're staying in Saratoga County, you're going to pay 7%. If you're in Albany, it's at least
8.5,
8,
maybe 8.5.
Yeah, maybe 8.5. It's at least 8. Schenectady County, I think it's 8.75. Now Warren, I think they're still at 7%. I think there's 3 of us
Yeah,
left.
there's only a few that are still at the.
Yeah.
I don't know if Warren went up or not.
Yeah, I think there's
I thought-
only
I thought
three
Warren was.
three
I thought maybe it
counties
was
at
7.5, maybe.
I thought it was 8.
Maybe
7,
8, maybe they went
I
up.
think it was because I looked at something to buy it.
But anyway,
Whatever.
whether they're at 7 or
I like
8.
the fact that we're 7.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. So if you're paying less sales tax staying in a hotel in Saratoga County, and your bed tax is still much lower than a lot of our peers and far lower than the average, even with the increase, we're still, I would say, competitive, but remain a great value.
Yep.
And based on all our record of taxes, as I mentioned before, and spending, that's a place where we want to be. We want to be competitive, but we want to be on the low end. So I think that's the thinking
Yeah,
around it.
and I would also just mention quickly that we have to do the home rule process for this too, right? We have to go through getting our legislators to support the bill down in Albany, and I think if you did go a little bit higher, that may turn them off to sponsoring it down in Albany.
Right.
So if we stay reasonable where we're at, I think that gets us a little better chance for having our local, assembly people and senators to, sponsor it for us too. Because they can also claim we're low taxes in Saratoga County for their political futures.
Yeah.
The weeds of
So,
politics.
Exactly.
Now, maybe another issue that was up for discussion that Jay wouldn't support as much, and that
Uh-oh.
was, and that
Well,
was
based on the prior answer.
earlier bar closing times.
Right. So, yeah.
Doesn't bother me. I don't go out anymore.
Not anymore.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Back in the Sneaky Pete's days,
Sneaky
he would have
Pete's,
been very
yeah,
upset.
Yes, yes.
You know, it used to be 3 o'clock. We'd leave and we hit Bob's Diner in Waterville for some gravy fries, and that was the night. you know?
Well, 3 o'clock might be.
Might be the
Come
answer
upcoming,
here. Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So was it 4 now?
It's 4 a.m. Yeah. So, so this has been going on in the city as a discussion for, over a decade.
I think bars still stayed open that late.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably 2012-ish or so is when the city council started to look at bar closing times and try to advocate for that. But interestingly, the city is not able to close bars earlier on their own. It's a county-wide law that has to be passed, or a resolution that gets sent to the state, who then kind of enacts the bar closing time. So agree with you. Back in 2012, I was a lot closer to my Sneaky Pete's days than I am now, and I was definitely not in favor of doing that.
But I mean, post-COVID, are there any bars that
it's a
stay
good-
open?
that- it's
I
an-
don't
that's
think
a
there
great,
are
and
any.
that's a great point
Very
Because-
rare, very rare.
yeah,
I
it's-
mean, when younger days, everything was open late.
yep,
I mean, even Walmart was 24 hours.
right.
Now
right.
everything closes. I feel like it's 1984 all over again, where everything closes early. You know,
But you're
I know
absolutely
that's
right.
just your heyday, 84.
Yeah. That was a little
But you know what I mean?
closer.
So
But you're absolutely
I'm
right.
surprised you
Yeah.
that's even in discussion, because I think most places would naturally close around 1 o'clock.
Yep. So that's one thing, right? Generally, the bars in downtown Saratoga are not staying open till 4. I think on big nights they still do, and definitely probably in the summer there's a few that are going to stay open till 4 o'clock because there's just the critical mass of people down there. But you're right. I think for the most part bars are closing at 2, maybe 1 o'clock.
I think that actually happened
Certain
organically,
weeknights
I think, yeah.
like today where it's 10 degrees outside with a minus.
They'll be closed at 10 o'clock.
Right, they'll be closed at early. So,
Yeah.
so we're getting to a point now where I think that we can do this in Saratoga County, countywide, and I think the support will be there for the supervisors.
So my question would be, because obviously, I disagree with this because I'm more of a libertarian.
Yes.
Why do we need government to tell you? Why don't you let them close organically?
Boy, that's a great question. And I felt that way for a long
Only
time.
just I'm a libertarian at heart. So
Yeah.
Why would we need a government rule to tell us that?
Well, that's a good question.
Why couldn't,
Well, I think-
why couldn't you individually incentivize the bar owner to close? Hey, could you guys close at that time? We're trying to do that.
Yeah,
And
it's all sales, so they would want to maximize sales. I think at the end of the day.
are there any in Saratoga that stay open that late?
Yeah, there's a few. Yeah, there's a few.
Does it cause problems for the police department?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's really the other
Yeah.
side of it, right?
Okay.
Public safety, and I think one of the things that we did do this time that we didn't do in the prior. I think the city council sent 4 resolutions to the county to try to do this over the years, and each time the county has not really gone for it because part of those reasons of government regulation. Why do we want to regulate business, right, and stay out of that? But also for the fact that it's philosophically they didn't see the issue, and the city was always sending them down after some incident occurred.
Yeah,
Right?
knee-jerk reaction.
Somebody was beat up downtown, and it
One
was
of the
a
horses
bad,
got broken.
Right, it was a bad bad
remember
night,
that.
and
Yeah.
there was that guy, the Vermont trooper there who got in a
Yeah.
fight on the corner
Yes.
about 3 years ago, and after every
And
one
recently,
of those,
something else
Yeah.
happened.
after there was a guy shot at the police
Drunk.
station the other day. Yeah, so after every one of those, the city seems to be sending a resolution to the county, and the county
Right.
is saying, well, this isn't really something where it's not a reaction to a problem. We should look at this a little bit differently, right? So the idea that we proposed, and I hope we get through this in the process, is this time of year when it's really cold and not much is going on, 2 a.m., right? We'll just close down at 2 o'clock in the morning, and because most places aren't open after
Yeah.
2 o'clock at this time of year. Summertime, because we
So do a
understand.
two-tier?
Yeah, we understand the businesses want to
I
make
like
the
that.
money. 3 o'clock. It'll be 3 o'clock. So we're splitting the difference an hour, just 1 hour less.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair to the bars because they really didn't like 2 o'clock all year round.
So does that mean does that same rule apply to the casino?
Yes. Yes.
So at 3 o'clock, I can't get a drink?
Yes.
Well, that sucks.
They're open until 4, so that last
Okay.
hour will be. I mean, they're only closed 4 hours a day at the casino. So
They actually physically close?
yeah, 4 a.m. to
They do
9
close.
a.m.
I thought they were
Yep.
24 hours.
Yep. So 4 a.m. to 9, I think, is their close time. Maybe on Saturday and Sunday they're staying open 24 hours now. But yeah, it used to be like closed for a few hours and then they open right back up. So, but at the end of the day, I think that's fair, and I think that
Yeah.
respects the businesses and their desire to make money, but it also respects our law enforcement, which is really a big push right now. As I mentioned, Commissioner Cole is really behind this because it does create overtime issues for the city of Saratoga Springs and for our county sheriff. Frankly, they get called into the city more than they probably should on the rowdy weekends. And we're facing a little bit of a budget crunch on overtime, right? And so this will help to kind of alleviate that. And so that's why we're going for it at this point. And I think also from the Board of Supervisors standpoint, some of our colleagues have indicated a desire to want to close earlier. And so even philosophically, while maybe 10 years ago there was a lot more of that libertarian streak in the Board of Supervisors, it's a little different now where there's a little more folks who are looking at the social impact and saying, earlier might be better just for as we stand right now.
Well, I think
So,
it's both.
Yeah.
I think there's still, the Board of Supervisors generally is still very conservative
Yes.
on the spectrum of politics. Still quite conservative, but when it comes to individual issues like this, as we've seen incidences grow over time, particularly in the city, and the city supporting this wholeheartedly, and I think unanimously, right? There just seems to be a great deal of support from the city. It doesn't affect the other municipalities as much because, like I said, it's very rare. I mean, I'm sure there's a couple out there, but it's very rare that a bar outside the city is open past 3 o'clock. And it's I think looking at the social aspects, the cost,
Yep.
the incidents that have happened, and over time, that maybe there is an opportunity here. Maybe it's the smart thing to do to say, 3 o'clock is a good limit.
Yep. And we'd still be, as as Phil has mentioned many times, we'd still be a little bit different than our colleagues. Most counties close earlier. Have already passed these laws, right? And we would still be open late. The only county I think in this area that doesn't have one is Albany, but they would still be 4 a.m. But at the end of the day, Saratoga is the 3 a.m. thing. You don't see that statewide in most counties. It's usually 2 a.m. or even 1 a.m. in a couple of counties, or they close early.
Oddly enough, my brain tells me it's a great idea. my libertarian streak
Your
thinks
heart
it's
says,
God, I don't
too
want
much.
more government. But yeah, I understand that. Full of reasoning, 100%.
Yeah, and I think with your point about COVID, you're right. I mean, that
Things have
that
changed a
kind
lot.
of thing doesn't happen so much anymore.
I mean, try getting food delivered at midnight.
Yeah,
Or find anything open past 10 o'clock. That's
Yep.
the kitchen. There's nothing open anymore.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Clifton Park, they roll up the carpet at about 9 o'clock. So, and we had one establishment that over the years we had a couple issues. It was a concert venue.
Yeah.
And
I
they
know what
brought,
you're
they
talking
brought in
I
some.
know what you're talking about.
Yep.
They
I've
brought
been
in,
there many
Yeah,
times.
me too.
yeah, I've took.
How old are you?
I'm 52.
My age.
Yeah,
So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had been there a few times myself. There weren't any problems those nights, thankfully.
Well, that was
but-
Joy's department store, so that wasn't the concert hall.
Yeah, it was
So-
right next. Oh, okay, yeah, right near Joy. Yeah, well, there were some issues there. I remember my first night in office, January 1st of 2000. There were gunshots over there, so that I was like, well, welcome to public service here as town supervisor. But overall, over the years, it was fine. Incidences here and there, and it was open late, but not that late. So even if you're not open till 4 o'clock,
Right.
there can still be issues.
Oh yeah.
But I think it has to be, when it comes to that, it's on an individual basis. And I had many discussions with the owners at that time. Somebody had taken it over several years later, and they ran a great operation.
Well, I think that some of the venues they had in there at
Yeah.
the beginning. I mean, I remember they had Guar in there one time, and
did they?
that
well,
crowd was
they,
terrible.
Wow.
They had a very diverse
Yes, they
group
brought-
of
Yeah.
concerts.
Just
There's
about
no doubt
everything,
about
and-
that. But they had
like winners.
Yeah.
They had
Yeah,
music
winners.
from all genres. I mean, from country to single performer to hard rock to
Guar.
they had it all.
Heavy metal with
Yeah.
throwing blood on you and everything.
Yeah. So,
Into that.
but I think you learn over time what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And in this situation, again, with the support from Saratoga Springs, where the issue is most acute as far as the bar, you have multiple bars open late, and the incidences that have occurred.
Yeah.
Couple that with just what we've learned over the years as Board of Supervisors not representing Saratoga Springs, and I think generally people are more open to having a new law that addresses this issue. What have you heard from the from the bars that do stay open? Are they dead set against it?
No,
Are they...
it's interesting. So just about every time I've been to a city council meeting when they brought this up, prior to now, the bar owners come out in force. Right, the city wants to do a resolution to close at 2. And I think that was part of that problem. The 2 a.m. time to
2
them
a.m.
was
's
a little too short,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And again, it's Matt Veach evolved over 10 years to watch this all happen. It's I guess I'm glad I'm still there.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that would happen every single time. And so this time, I had actually kind of put our Chamber of Commerce on the case just to go out and reach out to all the bars and say, here's what the proposal will be. 2 a.m., 3 a.m., right? And how do you feel about that?
So you've already proposed this.
Yeah. They were kind of given the heads up of
Yep.
what was coming.
Well, the city council voted on it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
But we had the chamber do all the outreach first,
Smart.
basically in the fall,
a good
this
idea.
fall. After the track settled down, we went out and said, hey, what do you think if we do it this way? And for the most part, I won't say every single one, but for the most part, they were pretty much okay with it because that's kind of what they're doing now, like we said, right?
Sure.
They're closing early in the wintertime. They're trying to stay open a little bit in the summertime, but no one's really closing at 4, maybe 1 or 2. So they came back with not a positive, but a, hey, we can live with this, right? Answer. And so we had this meeting at the city council week before Law and Finance. first week of February. No bars came to the public comment. Yeah, and
Everybody knew what was going on.
yeah, they received maybe 1 or 2 constituent letters that were anti-closing early.
I wonder how much business they get between 3 and 4.
Right.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I
I
mean-
have no idea what.
Even in our heyday,
Well-
it wasn't a ton of
Well,
people.
I remember when I used to work nights.
Yes.
A lot of shifts end at 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they would catch a drink on their way home.
Yep.
I mean, so you get the 3 to 4 shift, but that as drinking habits change, that probably
Yeah.
that
Right.
number probably is doing
Not
as
as
well
much.
too.
Yep. So again, there was no real outcry or outreach or comment from the bars, and so we kept going and haven't heard anything yet. And so the next part of the process, just to kind of wrap it up here a little bit, is we're going to have a public hearing. The county will have an open public hearing on this, and people can come and express their thoughts about how they feel.
Yep.
And then we will pass a resolution probably in April would be the timing to ask the state liquor authority to set the bar times for Saratoga County. And the only day that we'll stay open at 4 a.m. will be New Year's Eve. So we don't want to shut that day down. That would be the
Right.
one where we would stay open as late as we can. Everybody's off on New Year's Day, so
Sure.
Yeah.
we can stay open late that day. And I noticed that from other counties, like a county that closes at 2, like Clinton up in the North Country, with all those Plattsburgh State kids, they're closing at 2 a.m. They stay up until 4 on New Year's Eve. So most counties who have
It's just kind of weird
restricted
because
hours-
all the students are out of town.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably why they do that,
Right,
actually.
yeah, well, there's plenty of after hours. I went there, so
Yeah.
I remembered at 2 o'clock we all just went into the
SUNY
apartments.
Plattsburgh?
Yeah, SUNY
I
Plattsburgh.
partied
yeah.
there anytime.
Yeah.
Oh,
Great
boy.
school.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I love
As you
it.
can see, he gets around.
Yeah.
If there's a party, he's there.
It was a good time there.
So that's it. We'll see how it goes. You
Yeah.
know, every supervisor will have questions and concerns, and we'll
Yeah.
work through it.
Absolutely. The last year, the County Board of Supervisors voted unanimously to purchase property in Saratoga Springs. And I've talked about this on the show before. The county is mandated by New York State to provide a Code Blue shelter program, and when the temperature reaches a certain level in the evening or day, then we are mandated to have a shelter for homeless people to go. And we partner with Shelters of Saratoga, and they've been a great partner. They've
Yep.
done a terrific job. And we've had issues over the years trying to find a location that's suitable each and every year. Sometimes the owners of the building don't want to continue with the shelter. Properties change hands, and the new owner's not open to working with the county, whatever the case may be. We've been very fortunate. We plan ahead as far as possible to lock down a shelter site for the next year, and we do that as early as possible, knowing it's coming. We got to be ready. And it has, but it's been a lot of uncertainty. So to bring more certainty to the program that we know is going to continue to be mandated,
Yep.
it's not going away. As a matter of fact, they're even talking about expanding certain homeless programs. So to bring more certainty and to also be able to keep our future fixed costs on the program in line. Because we were provided with information from DSS that in future years of the program, the costs could rise exponentially,
Yep.
and there's no guarantee the state of New York's going to reimburse the county forever on this program or increase their reimbursement because our costs are going up.
Yep.
So in an effort to bring certainty into the program, that we have an official permanent site for Code Blue, and to control future costs of the program, which a permanent site will help us do, we purchased property in Saratoga Springs. The property was zoned for high-density housing. It's right on Route 50. It's at a bus stop. It's across from the Price Chopper, which is right across the street. And it just seemed to fit what we were looking for.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of support from the city council and yourself
Yep.
on that as well. What What do you foresee as the benefit for the city with a permanent Code Blue location?
Yeah, so it's hard to say from any community that there's a benefit from having a homeless site in
Right.
your town.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
It's a little challenging in any regard that you look at.
Yeah,
But
right.
what I would say is a couple of things. So I think you're right on as far as looking at it from a countywide perspective. It makes sense for us to do this because of those fixed costs. And we talked a lot about unfunded mandates here, and Code Blue is one of those programs that I foresee as it started off with 100% dollar for dollar state funding.
Yeah.
So every dollar we spend in Saratoga County, we got back from the state for running a Code Blue shelter. About 2 years ago, they went to what they call the allocation,
Yeah.
which means now Saratoga County gets fixed amount of money from the state each year for running Code Blue, regardless what our costs are. So if we have an overrun, which this year we may because it's been so cold.
Yeah.
We're running under 32 degrees now for like a whole month, which is rare in the
Right.
program, at least for the last couple of years. We may have to be on the hook for the overage that Shelters of Saratoga is now expending to run that program for us. And I think the other thing that you had mentioned before is that we've had it at, I think, 6 different locations in the city. I think that puts a strain on the residents of Saratoga Springs.
Yeah.
They have to guess where the Code Blue is going to be. It could be in your neighborhood. It could be in a different neighborhood. It could be in a commercial site. It could be one year we had it literally right on Caroline Street, right block next to the bars, right? And not an ideal place for a
Yeah.
homeless population in the city, but that was the available spot that Saratoga County could get. So so having it where we're going to put it, I mean, while it is a visible location, and I think right now we faced a couple of neighbors that have concerns, and I think
Which
they should.
They should.
About what's going to happen. But I think the solutions to those problems are going to be, that it's a more secure building.
Yeah.
Right now, it's in an old hotel on South Broadway that has literally no security around it. So folks can kind of come and go as they please. There's another city homeless shelter that's like right next to it, and they go walking back and forth, and things happen in these private hotel rooms because the facility is kind of like a U shape, and one side of the building it's harder to police, but the one side in the front you can see everything. So right now it's not in a very good location in Saratoga, and it really
Right.
hasn't been for years. So what this will do is we'll provide that kind of security, present a property that will kind of hold these folks in an area so that they're not kind of out there doing various things within the community. It is a challenge.
Yeah.
Our homeless population has exploded in Saratoga Springs and Saratoga County generally over the past 5 years. We were had the dubious honor, I think, over the last year for having the highest growth of homeless of all counties in New York State. And it's not because we have Code Blue and not because it's in Saratoga Springs. It's just generally this is an issue that we're facing as a society right now.
Right.
There's a homeless population, and what do you do about that? With mental health and other services. But where we're putting this site, there's also some of those services nearby, which I think is important. Our
Yep.
mental health unit is about a block away, county mental health unit.
Yep.
Shelters of Saratoga is running a transitional site about a block away from this Code Blue location. And the city's homeless shelter will still be where it is, at least for now, just like next to it. So at the end of the day, I think it makes sense to kind of site it where we're siting it, and again, I understand the neighbors' concerns, but at the end of the day, it seems to be the right place, and it's going to be, I think, better overall for the city. We know where it is. We know how to manage it.
Right.
Our public safety can respond better when we have a permanent location, which has been a goal for 10 years.
And
So
Shelters-
excited to get it done.
Yeah, and Shelters of Saratoga has been and currently raising money to build the shelter. And for the first time, we'll be able to design and build a shelter to be a shelter.
Right.
Uh,
To meet the needs of the program.
Yeah, what we've been doing for years is finding a property that is available and then trying to fit a round, a circle into a triangle and make it fit, and say, all right, well, we've got this property, it's available, we can utilize it, we can get a lease on it. We'll make it into a shelter.
Right.
but none of the locations have really been designed to be a shelter.
Yep.
So I think that is another very important part of this. And it doesn't mean anything to anybody else other than the people that we partner with to manage it.
Right.
It means a lot to them
Right.
and what they're trying to do. And it'll be much better for the people around the shelter.
Yep.
Um,
Security is a key in something
Yeah.
like that. It's, public safety is called there constantly. And again, back to our police and burdening them. They're responding to homeless calls when they have lots of other things they could be doing in the city, and having a site that kind of has that security within it and is better managed. Will reduce those calls. He doesn't. Our commissioner doesn't quite believe that yet, but
Yeah,
I think
I know.
it will happen. That there'll be less police calls because we'll be able to, manage the program in a facility that it's built for, rather than what we're doing right now.
And I don't blame anybody for having concerns about it.
Nope.
Gosh, whether it's an elected official or a resident of the county, we certainly don't blame anybody for having these issues and questions. But the bottom line is we're mandated to house the program, and therefore it's incumbent upon us to do it in the best way we can and find the best permanent location. And in this case, again, we were very fortunate. Now, we paid more money because of the location, because of the zoning. It was worth more money than maybe another piece of property that was zoned for residential, single family residential or something like that. But so we invested more money now in an effort to hopefully save money in the future. So an upfront investment of a larger amount of money will save the county money probably many-fold in the future. But the other part of it is, at least from my own standpoint, I didn't want to go into an area that or buy a piece of property that wasn't zoned for something that was commercial or dense residential or something of that nature. To me, that was an important part of this. Yes, you spend more money, but trying to be as fair as possible to Saratoga Springs and the general community. It's not as if that was going to be, a small project that was going to be placed there. It was going to be a major development project, and I thought that was important too.
Yeah.
Just trying to be fair, and when we're seeking out different opportunities that were available.
And I would say a couple other things. So there was already a house on that property, so that kind of increased the costs. I mean, if you look at the real estate websites and look at Saratoga Springs, what it costs for even a modest house now is, just getting up there. So there's an old Victorian on there, and it was being used as a law office for a lot
it's in
of
good
years,
shape.
and it's in great shape.
2 stories.
There's some benefit potentially to the county if we decide to subdivide, or maybe there's a way for shelters to utilize that property in a way that will benefit them. But the other part of it was, from the Saratoga Springs perspective, I mean, nobody really wants to have a homeless shelter in their town. It's not something you sign up for and raise your hand and say, sure, we'll take it. But, when we looked at how we could operate this in another town, like we have to do our due diligence, right? So what if you put it in a different town in Saratoga County? What does that change? How does that change the program? And the cost would just go up because the homeless are located in the city. For the most part, there's some in other towns, but they congregate mainly in the city. So you'd be providing service for folks not in the place where they're located, and it would cost us more money to have to try to find all these folks that gather them into a cold blue shelter when it's below 32 degrees out in some other town. It just wouldn't have made any sense. So from a countywide perspective, of put that hat on, it made better sense to just have it where we have it. So
what do you see in the summertime as far as along Broadway? I know there's quite a bit of homeless folks in along Broadway in the summertime, but what is the general atmosphere, and what do you see when when you're walking down Broadway or Carolyn Street or different more high-profile streets in the city as far as the homeless in the summertime?
Yeah, so I would say over the past year, it's gotten a lot better. And I would give a testament to Commissioner Cole and his work that he's done for getting that problem kind of taken care of. They are very much, I don't want to say on top of, because it sounds like the wrong kind of language for homeless folks, but they're very much in tune with what's going on at the street level.
Yeah.
And then responding to it rather than it being kind of like, well, react to every little problem that happens here and then go over there and then go. That was what was happening before in the prior administration, was just kind of seemed like a haphazard response, trying to just, plug the hole in the dike.
You're probably talking about situations where, I had seen
the parking garage was a mess.
Yeah, the parking garage was a mess. I mean, there was, because that was kind of the hangout, right? And then, you'd see somebody passed out right on a corner along Broadway, just kind of laying across the sidewalk and just kind of left there. And I think those are the things you're talking about, right? When you say being on top of things.
We very much focus on those folks and, whether they need help, and we go get them the help that they need. Or
it doesn't do him any good to be laying passed out on the sidewalk, right? I mean, that's dangerous for him.
Or figuring out a way to move him along, or, in some cases there is some, criminal activity that occurs. And then we, instead of just kind of letting it go like we were doing for the past couple of years, we're now really just taking, a more heavy hand into that and making sure that we deal with it properly. It's, again, Commissioner Cole has just been really in tune with what's going on at that level, better than many commissioners that I've seen before try to handle this.
Because really, it's a two-pronged problem. You might have a public safety situation that occurs between the homeless and residents or tourists. But then there's also the public safety aspect for the person that has the issues.
Yes.
And like I said, if they're laying across the sidewalk passed out in a very busy area with cars going by and people walking by, it's not safe for them either.
No.
And so I think addressing that is incredibly important for both parties.
And he's done a great job. I can't say enough about the response that he's had in a lot of aspects with a lot of things. And
good.
We do have also, we put them through, we have a homeless court in Saratoga, which is kind of a little different than other communities, and that's actually worked
How does that
quite
work?
well. They go to Judge Vero, and she has, sometimes they're sentenced to actual time, but other times they're sentenced to other things about getting mental health treatments and things like that they really need. And so that has done a lot to try to kind of lessen our homeless population issues that we have in our city. But again, if you go to homeless court and you're told to go to mental health counseling and you don't do that, then you're in violation of the court order, and then they use the other part of the law to say you violated your terms, right? And then you will wind up in the county jail or city lockup or whatever, and it happens,
Right.
But I think for the most part, it's working better than it has, and I think a lot of it's because law enforcement has really stepped up their game.
Oh, that's
and they're doing it sensitively, of course. You don't want to say that, but but they do what needs to be done rather than just kind of, again, trying to stop the immediate issue happening today and forgetting about that something's going to happen tomorrow.
Well, and the county wants to continue to be good partners.
Yes.
So we are making a significant investment. Shelters of Saratoga, with their fundraising, they have a lot of great support in the services they offer. They want to be a good partner. So I'm very hopeful as we move forward with this program that folks that do have issues with the fact that there's going to be a permanent homeless shelter in that location, over time it'll prove that it was the right decision for the county and also a good decision for Saratoga Springs. So that's our goal.
Absolutely.
Very good. So Saratoga Springs is such an important part of the county, and you as a leader of Saratoga Springs for many, many years, are there any other issues that people should? I mean, those are two big issues that the city council voted on recently: the bar closing times and the occupancy tax, hotel bed tax increase. Anything else on the horizon that?
Yeah, well,
that's
no,
been
I mean,
taking up a lot of time. Right
From
there.
from a political standpoint, I mean, I think it looks like we may have a new commissioner of DPW
Yes.
coming in,
That's
Chuck
yeah, good
Marshall, and
point. Yeah.
that was a very controversial election that happened up in Saratoga Springs, and it looks like the court has ruled in his favor, and
Right.
so that would be the first time in God, maybe a decade, maybe longer than a decade, that there will be three Republicans or three Republican endorsed people, let's say that,
Right.
on the city council in a long time. So that will change a little bit of how we respond to issues in the city of Saratoga Springs. And it's a good sign, I think. You know, I think people are seeing, from some of the last 4 years of, various types of things the city has been doing, that, they're ready for some change and they want to see a more, well, I won't say more, but definitely a reasonable, pragmatic council that works on issues and doesn't necessarily get so much into the political infighting, which does still happen in the city quite a bit at the council table. And, we need to stop fighting with each other and work on, fixing the problems that we have.
That's right.
So.
Yeah, there's not a lot of local elections that are held in January.
No.
But the city council did set an election schedule that had a election at the end of January. It was an interesting situation. But Chuck Marshall and the person that was in the job was Hank Kaczynski.
Yeah.
And it appears as though Chuck Marshall is going to win that election. So I'll say congratulations if it's not too premature, but congratulations to him, and good luck to him and his new endeavor.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it'll be definitely a good move for Saratoga Springs, good direction, and we look forward to what he's going to do in that position.
All right.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, Supervisor Veach, thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate it
Thanks for
very
having
much
me.
here
It's
on
great.
the Phil Barrett Show. Soon to be award-winning. Phil Barrett Show. You've been kind of quiet the last 15 minutes. What
Mama
happened?
told me if I had nothing constructive to add, I wouldn't add anything because I'm very militant on that topic, so I chose not to say nothing.
Oh, all right. Wow, he's getting pretty reserved in his old age, isn't he? Wow. Went from Sneaky Pete
Right,
I
to being reserved.
would just arrest them all, get them out of there.
Oh, all right. Well, we can't do that.
Well,
But
Maybe if you did, the county wouldn't have as many. I don't know. I'm very militant when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Well, again, as a county,
So I chose not to say anything.
as a county,
There's a range of ideas. We'll say
yes,
that.
yes. As a county, we do have certain mandates,
Yes.
as we've discussed a few times here, and
We can't not do it.
no, and we have to follow the law. So, I mean, you wouldn't like it if we wasted a whole lot of taxpayer money on lawsuits and everything from the state, and God knows everything.
Well, the
else.
state loves lawsuits.
That would come.
I saw that
come
with
with
Trump.
it. But so anyway, the important part is when there's a mandate or program that the County Board of Supervisors has decided this is the direction we're going to go, we need to make sure that we're thoughtful in planning and executing that initiative, whatever the case may be. And we've talked about a few of those today.
Yeah.
Some have already been voted on by the city council. Others will be coming before the Board of Supervisors in the next few months. And we're always interested on your thoughts on these subjects and much more. We will be back next week with another edition
Oh,
of
two
the
for two.
yeah. Well, we got in a good rhythm there, and then the holidays, and then I've just been too busy the last few weeks. I was down at Bowman Gray.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Went to
Nice.
Bowman Gray. That was that place is wild.
Wow.
I mean, that place is cool. We had a great time.
What'd you do?
The NASCAR race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it was great. Yeah. No, it was a great time. Great time. My son and I.
Connors was at Daytona this past weekend.
Yeah, he was. He was.
Yeah, he's been on here chit-chatting away.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is he back yet, or is he?
No, I think he said it's 76 degrees and sunny down there right now.
Wow.
Bastard.
Well, I was down in Charlotte. Two for 2 days it was 65 and
Oh,
sunny.
yeah.
So that wasn't too hard to take.
No,
Yeah.
and you came back to this.
But we'll be back next week on the Phil Barra Show
I won't
again.
even tell you where I was.
Where were
I went
you?
to the
Oh,
U.S. Virgin Islands.
yeah.
Oh,
That
get
was
the hell out of here. Oh,
What was the weather there?
It was awesome. 85 in the day
Oh.
and 75 at night. It was
I
beautiful.
miss summer.
And then I
God.
came back and we have an ice storm. I was like,
Welcome back to
yeah,
reality.
Yeah.
exactly. I want to go back.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Supervisor Veach, for all
Very
of,
nice meeting you. Thank you.
all of your
Absolutely.
leadership
Glad to
over
be
the
here.
years. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
We've got a very busy 2025 coming up, and
Oh,
as chair
hold
of
on,
law and
I'm not-
finance and vice chair of the county, he's going to have a busy year. Yeah,
I meant to
I woke
ask.
him up.
Yeah, no, I meant to ask before we first started, because you said you're big into the history and
Yeah.
sort of. Are you involved with the 250th anniversary?
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
That was,
Yeah,
I meant to ask that, but I didn't want to interrupt you earlier when you're talking about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that sounds like that's right in your wheelhouse,
It's
Oh, he's
it's a
very-
great it's a great thing that we're doing, and yeah, I've been talking with Lauren Roberts, our historian, and yeah, I'm involved in that to as much as I can be.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
Oh no, we're
And
all.
I
right? I digress. I apologize.
Two years from now, an international event. It's gonna be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's bigger than the Belmont for sure.
Talk about
Yeah.
tourism.
Yeah.
I can't wait. It's my favorite.
I
One of my
said to
favorite
somebody,
topics.
we're gonna have the Brits come back over, and then then we're gonna send them right back home.
because they're not gonna like what we have to say.
Well, you got the Canadians booing our
Yeah,
athletes.
Yeah.
Did you see that? Did you
Should
see
be a
that?
big game on Thursday.
Yeah.
The Final Four, the tournament of the Four Nations.
Yeah.
It's the final is between Canada and U.S.
Yeah.
Boy.
Should be good. Hopefully, Canada gets their asses kicked.
I wonder if there's going to be 3 fights in the first 9 seconds.
Maybe,
Did you watch
maybe.
it?
Oh yeah.
That was
Oh,
awesome.
yeah.
That was awesome.
It's like
The
wow.
Tkachuk brothers.
Yeah, dropped the gloves as soon
Yeah.
as the puck went
Jeez.
down.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did you watch? Did you watch?
No,
it?
no, I'm not a big hockey fan, but yeah,
Yeah, Thursday
I saw
night,
the
8 o'clock. You
pictures, I
gotta
saw
watch
the
it.
video,
It's,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
big because there's a lot of political tension going on.
Oh, yes.
And everything. So it's
Well, I think
it's
that-
all it was always a big rivalry to begin with.
Right.
I think that first game is setting up this game
Oh yes.
to be
bigger.
the biggest game since
Miracle on
1980.
Ice. Yeah, Miracle on
1980.
Ice.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think it's. I can't remember a hockey game that had this much interest internationally.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Since 1980.
Well, it's funny. Get in my wheelhouse here.
Yeah, he likes hockey.
Big politics and hockey, and Canada's had the fortune of being like America's little brother. They can say
Yeah.
what they want, do what they want, because we always defend them, we always protect them. Nobody does anything to Canada because of the United States.
Yep.
So now they feel they can flex their muscles like a little banded rooster running around. And hopefully Thursday they'll get the beat down that they deserve and go back stay in your lane.
I think Canada's going to be a great 51st state.
Oh.
But anyway, we'll see if we can get their premier on, or whatever he's called.
Governor Trudeau.
Governor Trudeau, yes, Governor Trudeau. We'll see if we can get him on the show. But again, thank you all for joining us very much here on the Phil Barrett Show. We'll be back next week with another fantastic guest. Thank you, Supervisor Veach, for everything you do.
Thank
and
you.
we'll see you soon.
Bye
Thank
now.
you.